If you've ever thought about designing and writing and publishing your own knitting pattern, this video is for you. Today, I wanted to walk you guys through my 7-step process that I take to write and publish my own knitting patterns. I've gotten lots of questions about designing and writing patterns, so I thought I would just take a little time to walk you guys through what I do. So this is my process, this is what works for me, and I just wanted to share with you guys what it's all about. All right, the first thing I do is find my design inspiration, and my best friend for this is my phone. So when I'm out and about, whether I'm walking the dog and I'm outside and I look up at the sky and I see these cool colors, or I see leaves or stones or rocks that remind me of certain design elements, I'll take a picture of it. And I actually have an album on my phone with all of my design inspiration. So when I get back to the house, I can pull that photo album back out and look at what yarn I've got or what yarn I want to buy. When I'm out shopping at a place like Target in the home section, I look at pillows. I look at other sweaters or purses or shoes and really try to find fun design elements. So if I see a cool tassel or a fun zipper or some different stitching, or I love the way two colors look together in a purse or sweater, I'll just snap a quick picture, put it in my photo album. You can also just have a notebook with you to, maybe a small notebook in your purse to write something down or sketch something out quickly. But, find your design inspiration and then decide what you want to knit. Next step is actually planning your design. And I really say take the time to do this, because when you're really confident with what you've planned out, it's easier to finish. When you have a clear plan, it's easier to stay on track and stay focused and finish the sample and move forward with the process. So take the time to knit a swatch. I love to knit different swatches with different yarns and different needle sizes and see different ways stitches work up with synthetic yarn or natural yarn. So take the time to swatch and plan and sketch. I love to sketch everything out in my notebook. So once you have a clear plan, and it doesnn't mean you're not gonna deviate from the plan a little bit, but I like to have somewhat of a clear plan, somewhat of a clear idea before I really jump in. Or I'll take the time if I'm doing like a cool pocket or a different kind of collar. I'll play around with that unique element before I jump into the full design. Next step is knitting the sample and taking notes at the same time. I have to say that together because I used to be the worst at this. Sometimes I'm so bad at this, but take detailed notes as you knit your sample. It makes writing the pattern up so much easier. So whether it's in a notebook, on a computer, on your phone, pick whatever way you like the best and take detailed notes. All the way from what yarn you're using, what needle size, how many stitches you're casting on, just take as detailed notes as possible. There have been times too where I actually write the pattern up in my pattern template as I'm knitting my sample, and that makes everything so much easier when it's time to write up the pattern. So once you've knit your sample, it's time to actually write the pattern. And, if you've knit from patterns before, kind of your typical elements of a pattern. There's usually a general description with an overall directions on how the garment or item is constructed. There are things like what yarn you're supposed to use, what your gauge is, how much yarn you'll need, what needle size pattern recommends using. There are things like notions if you need stitch markers or tape measures, scissors, any other buttons, things like that. That's included in the notion section. There's usually an abbreviation section for things like knitting and purling and knitting two together and make one left and make one right. So there's usually a section that has all of those abbreviations explained. Some patterns have schematics and measurements. Schematic is a drawing of what you are making. A lot of times sweater patterns will have a schematic with different dimensions. Finished measurements are usually included, so you can figure out what size you're making, if there are multiple sizes, or just if you're knitting a hat in one dimension, It'll just give you measurements so you can figure out if it'll fit you. So generally, those are the things that are included in a knitting pattern, obviously with instructions on how to knit the pattern. So once you've taken the time to draft the pattern, I definitely recommend getting the pattern technically edited. So a knitting technical editor is someone who's qualified basically to review your pattern, help you identify any mistakes, help you write consistently, help you figure out the most concise and direct way to write directions in a pattern. So, getting your pattern edited and then also test knitting can happen kind of simultaneously. I like to go through the technical edit process first before I send my pattern out to my testers. Some people go the other way around. Some people do it simultaneously. Sometimes it doesn't always work to get your pattern edited before it goes out to testers. But if I have my way, I like to get my pattern edited to get it in the best place possible for my testers. And then once I've made the updates from the technical editor, I will send the pattern out to my testers who will test knit for me. So this is a way to make sure that what I've written can be followed by other knitters. I like to have knitters at all different kinds of levels. I like to have people use different kinds of yarns to see how it works. But basically, it's to make sure you've written the pattern clearly. It's to make sure the pattern actually, the item comes out the way you want it to with the directions you've provided. They give you feedback, you make the updates, and then the pattern is ready to be published. And you can decide when it's time to publish what kind of platform you want to publish your pattern on. You can put it on your website, you can put it on Etsy, you can put it on Ravelry. There's lots of different platforms that you can publish your knitting pattern on. And what's great about a lot of these platforms like Etsy and Ravelry is there's an audience already built in to those platforms. So, if you are a newer designer, you might not have as big of a following on social media, or you might not have a really large email list out to market your pattern to. So using platforms like Etsy and Ravelry is a great way to sell your pattern to an audience already out there. I love, a great way to help market your pattern if you do have a social media following is to show your design process along the way, show little tidbits of you making the item so you can get your followers excited about the pattern that's going to be released. And then when it's ready to release, you already have people who are interested in buying it because they've seen you make this along the way. So that is my overall process for writing and publishing a knitting pattern. If you are interested in publishing your own patterns, if you're new to this, please check out my course, Powerfully Published, linked in the video description. This is a great course that walks you through the process of designing, writing, editing, testing, and publishing and marketing a knitting pattern. So be sure to check that out. All right, guys, see you in the next video.